Tashi the leg. You know this word, tashi the leg? All of you? Tashi the leg. This is how Tibetans greet. Tashi the leg. Meaning, may you have auspiciousness and well-being. Tashi means auspiciousness. De leg means happy and well and happy, something like that. So that word Tashi de leg itself can be a topic for a lengthy teaching. How would you become auspicious? You would not become auspicious because of some external blessings. There is a text called reciting the name of Manjushri, the deity of wisdom. So in that there is a line which says, Chu shi tashi tashi jung, the tashi that I'm talking about, Chu shi tashi tashi jung. That means it is by knowing the Dharma there will be auspiciousness. Chu shi tashi, it's by Chu means Dharma. It's by knowing Dharma there will be auspiciousness. Chu shi tashi tashi jung, and auspiciousness will also be there in the future. That means there will be auspiciousness and success now, there will be auspiciousness, success in the future. Tashi kunji tashiva, and you will also be able to get the best of auspiciousness. Among all the auspiciousness, there is one which is supreme, which is getting liberated and achieving enlightenment. And tashi kunji tashiva, that auspiciousness which is supreme among all auspiciousness, means that in our ordinary life we have auspiciousness or success in the sense of your business, your health, your well-being. This is termed as success, or thereby auspicious, right? But by studying Dharma, you will achieve the supreme auspiciousness and well-being for this life and for many lives to come. Auspiciousness of liberation, auspiciousness of enlightenment, complete enlightenment, things like that. Tashi de leg is a very, very nice word. In India, we greet each other by namaste. You know the meaning? Namaste. Namaste means, I bow down to you who has this God within you. I bow down to you who has this divine spark within you. Right? So all this have very good meaning, very good meaning. So we are here to get those different levels of auspiciousnesses. And the reason we are not getting those auspicious states is because of ignorance. As Shantideva says in this book, that even though you aspire to have happiness, but because of ignorance, you destroy the cause of happiness. Even though you aspire to shun suffering, but because of your ignorance, you run after the causes of suffering. So the running that we are doing, in many cases, becomes causes for suffering. Because running you are doing is primarily for collection of material facilities, increasing your name and fame, all this for these fleeting pleasures. So this, running after sensual objects will, before long, will bring more problem. There's the meaning. And we all want happiness, the most desirable happiness, the long-lasting happiness. But the causes of those happinesses we destroy as if it is our enemy because of ignorance. Now, for example, if you talk about compassion and non-violence, people might say, oh, compassion and non-violence we can't practice today. Compassion and non-violence, for many people, think that it is a sign of weakness. Now in this today's world, what you need is weapon, nuclear weapon. Seriously speaking, that unfortunately the situation and the environment is such that people are compelled to think like that. Look at Japan. Because of its experience of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Have you visited Japan and visited Hiroshima and Nagasaki? How many of you visited? Yeah, so you saw it, right? I visited few times. During that bombardment, the destruction was so immense. Kids going to the school just melted. They are on the road, living something like a shadow, nothing, bones, everything just melted because of radiation. You see? Now they have a nice museum, you can see what has happened, Iron rods, thick as like this, are melted. Unimaginable destruction. And because of this, the Japanese government took a decision never to go for nuclear things. Now see today, because of your neighboring countries, you're pressurized. No other way, you see, unfortunately. But then, if you think for the long-term happiness, this show of forces and flexing the muscles is not going to help us at all. It will only it will only destroy everybody. As I said the other day, assured mutual destruction. This is for sure. But we are doing this because of ignorance. Insanity. So the only way to stop that insanity is to explore the real nature within ourselves and cultivate it and talk about it, share it, say no to war, say no to killing, and say no to all these bad things that is happening. And it shouldn't become what we call as accomplice, as we say. You should not become a friend or supporter of all those wrong things. Read Mahatma Gandhi's approach. Non-cooperation. Even if you don't want to just jump into the battle and do all those things, but at least there are many areas where you should not cooperate. Non-cooperation. The countless useless things that is produced in the market with the packages, they are all, these packages then thrown all around. Imagine, it will take not much time when we will suffocate the earth. And why you are doing this? We are hypnotized, as we read yesterday. We are kind of really hypnotized. We don't see the side effect, the great damage that we are doing, and we are, without thinking, buying everything, throwing all the packages around. How many birds, how many animals are killed by devouring these junks that human beings are throwing around? This is all there for all of us to see on your mobile phone, on your internet, on your TV. But who is going to change this? We are not able to do this because, number one, even those things which you can individually do, we are not doing. Second, there are many things here that you can do together. We're not joining the forces for good. Like right now when I was coming up, in 2-3 places the water was just running like that. If Dharamsala is full of water. It's not. There's shortage of water. But you have broken taps, nobody taking care. 24 hours, day and night, for weeks, the water is just wasted. Now if you go to somebody to ask for that connection or think that, no, we have shortage of water, this, that, all this shows there is no genuine sense of responsibility and genuine compassion among us, you see. We can do so many things, even small things like that. Why don't we have a group, organization who occasionally look after all this, what is happening? Even small things make a huge, huge difference in the life of people. But we are not doing. So if you, for example, take a promise saying that from henceforth I will not throw rubbish. Not throw rubbish is a good thing, but most important thing is I will not buy rubbish. Very often we come out and then pose for a picture and saying we are cleaning India, That is good. Cleaning may be good. If you are doing, that's good. That we are not doing, but even if you are doing, that's good. But the most important is not just cleaning. Make sure that the rubbish doesn't come. Once I was talking something like this, and somebody said, why can't we clean these garbages? It's so easy in big cities. People who have the power, why don't we do this? Delhi or in any city, big city. Then I was shocked to hear that, Bhaiya, ismein bhi rajniti hai. Says, even not cleaning the garbage is politics. I don't understand things like that. So anyway, let us not criticize other people who are not doing whatever. We are also part of the society. So we should try our best to help, to clean, to preserve. It's very, very important. Otherwise we are just talking, Yes?
Thank you. I had a question on seeing these tragedies and things that are happening in the world due to ignorance.
Yeah.
And how does the ultimate nature of reality, emptiness, how does that sight help in a practical way?
Yeah, in a practical way, I think I explained earlier. I said, dependent origination and emptiness are two sides of the same coin. You remember that? So that means emptiness means empty of independent existence, therefore things have dependent existence. So because of our interconnectedness, dependence, interconnectedness among human beings, interconnectedness with the environment, with everything. So because of this interconnectedness, what affects some other area will affect you also. Especially in today's world, you just can't say, oh, that country is very far. With the technology, with media, we are all connected. So unless we take responsibility, we'll all suffer at the end of the day. Like for example, the global warming. Now these days people say global warming is not a correct term. It's global heating. Warming looks okay, slowly. Heating, it's global heating. And you have seen this fire, in Australia, in America, many places, the fire, which never happened before. The flood that's happening everywhere. All this foretelling that something major mistake has been made by humanity. Right? So, no need to talk about religion for a while. At least, talk about those things which is common sense, practical, which we can do, Right? There's not much point engaging in, dry, philosophical, intellectual exercises. Especially in Buddhism, even when you talk about the highest points like emptiness, as you rightly asked, the purpose is how to see our interconnectedness, how we should together solve the problems, be it environmental, be it global, be it racial discrimination, All this is happening because of ignorance and because of having no genuine loving kindness and compassion. Exactly, exactly. There's no other way. I'm telling you, there's no other way. Right now we are not uniting. The good people are not uniting. Very soon we will be compelled to do that. Right now you tolerate a little bit. Tolerate the dictator or whoever, the environmental destruction, whoever. And human beings have this very short-sighted tendency, until you are affected, you don't move. It's only when you don't get water in your tap, then you start looking around what is happening, start criticizing. So long as you are getting water in your tap, you don't care others are getting or not getting it. Even for washing a small cup of tea, you will really release the full volume of the water, such a big wastage, Because we don't have much concern, awareness. How many people are using that water? How by misusing your water, how many people will be affected, you see? And instead of doing things right, we always say, "Mere ek aadmi ke karne se kya farak padega?" How does it make a difference by doing something good just by one person like me, one individual? How this can affect? This is our attitude, When you think about the world, it's nothing but a combination of individuals. If the individuals don't do the right thing, the so-called world will collapse, it will fall, you see. Right now, there's a lot of discussion going on, UN, if let me say something about that. There has been so many years, this so-called 5 permanent security members. For the last 70, 80 years, they decide everything. If something is not in their favor, then they say veto. They have the veto power. I did my political science study. I did my political science in my BA. I have some idea, but of course I'm not a politician. But then, the League of Nations failed. Why the League of Nations failed? Because League of Nations failed, now we have UNO, which is supposed to be better, which is, to my mind, is also not doing the right thing. These 5 countries, so-called permanent members of the Security Council, are controlling everything. So now people are gradually rising against it. They are saying that permanent security members must be changed. At least there should be 20, 30. You see, for 70 years, only 4 or 5 countries are trying to control everything. I will never understand these things. And then also in the world, there are some countries, it looks like they can give nuclear bomb. When others are in the process of making a nuclear bomb, they say you can't. So all these things we need to study a little bit. Not to become a politician, but this is reality affecting our life. Right? So, Buddhism must make sense in today's world. Am I right? Buddhism must make sense in today's world. You can have the comfort and luxury of talking about complete enlightenment and nirvana. Yes, of course, wonderful. But how are you going to get a little bit of glimpse of nirvana enlightenment here on this earth, here among the society? So therefore it is really, really important. For example, if you want to sing and dance, moving your head and hand, first you need to have your 2 feet on the ground, firmly on the ground. If you don't have your feet firmly on the ground, how are you going to sing and dance? So first be a good human being, sensible human being, which cares about other people's well-being. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, if possible, help as much as you can. If you can't, at least don't harm. Very sensible, very practical, very easy. So that is the way how we can change society. If individual human beings never mend their ways, no amount of army, no amount of police, no amount of security check will be able to contain them. Because as we all know, some of the criminals and other, people who want to do bad things, they are also very clever, they are expert. So they always find a way. You see? If you can't, hoard money in your home, they will hoard it in a temple. You know the story, we all know the story. You see, there's always a way out. So it's only when you become a genuine, good human being, practicing no duplicity in life, then the society will change. And you can make this society so beautiful. Especially a country like India, which is really the home of most of the great spiritual tradition, you see. We are fortunate to have such a great tradition. Now it is our task to revive some of those traditions. That's why His Holiness the Dalai Lama, many of you may or may not know it, he made 4 commitments. First 3, now 4 commitments. Of course, there are many other commitments that he made, but he made 4 commitments, which I think we should also emulate. His first commitment is to realize that we are all human beings. First is that we are all human beings. So here you are not talking about whether you are Indian, Tibetan, Chinese, American. This is so important. First thing to know is not which country you belong to, whether you are Tibetan or Chinese, Indian. That's not the topmost priority. The first priority is all human beings need to know I am a human being. That's the most precious thing. So because it is on this level you can easily connect to all other human beings. So therefore his first commitment is to improve human values. Right? To improve human values. And how are you going to improve their human values? And he's already saying, through secular ethics. If you don't like the word secular, because it has remained a little bit controversial right from the beginning, so at least we are saying social, ethical, emotional learning, something like that. So basically it is improving your human values. Now how will you improve that human value? You can get some idea from religion also. But you need to realize that majority of the people are non-believers. And there are also a big population who are anti-religion. So when we talk about secular ethics or social, ethical, emotional learning, we are talking about universal values. Whether you believe in something or not, you can draw inspiration from religions also, so long that inspiration, that message is universal. You can't now talk about emptiness here, because that is not universal. You can't talk about God, that's not universal. You talk about compassion, you talk about love. You talk about brotherhood, sisterhood. You talk about mindfulness. You talk about resilience. Right? So which is applicable to believer, non-believer, and applicable even to those who don't believe in religion. They also need harmony. They also need brotherhood, sisterhood. So that is his first commitment. I'm not going to explain in detail, that is first commitment. His second commitment is, now it's very interesting how he's doing that. He's doing this by saying, first I'm a human being, so I have the responsibility to do something for the whole humanity. And just like His Holiness, you're also a human being. So you should have that bigger responsibility towards all humanity. It's very, very important. That's the most important. Then second, he says, he's a religious person, he's a Buddhist. Right? So in your case also you may follow one or the other religion. So therefore he is saying that as a religious person, my job and task is to bring religious harmony. Whether you believe in God or not, that's not important. What is important is the message. The believers of God, the non-believers of God, whatever their, philosophical differences, but the main message is love, affection, harmony. So we should all come together and don't fight in the name of philosophical differences. Don't try to prove that my religion is best. That's what we do. This again, it's because of self-centeredness. We have this tendency to prove whatever you are doing is best. So similar, therefore you follow a particular religion and then you think this is the best religion. If you believe in God, then you start thinking those who don't believe in God, they go to hell. Once Bishop Tutu made a joke to His Holiness Dalai Lama. They are a very good friend, very nice person. I also met him a few times. So during the joke, they always used to, make fun of each other. He said, I follow Christianity, therefore I'll go up. I don't know where the Dalai Lama will go. Then he said something like, that was a joke, He's saying this because people think like that, you see. So therefore he saw the Holy Holiness saying, never ever try to say your religion is best. You cannot say. If somebody asks you which religion is best, it is like asking which medicine is best. And you cannot just pick up one medicine and say this is the best medicine in the world because it is costly or it is pricey. It may be costly, it may be pricey, but so long as this medicine is not relevant to curing your disease, that medicine is useless. So for you, that medicine is best which cures your illness. If you have a headache, then maybe panacea or whatever, That's good for you. But that medicine is not good for somebody who is having diarrhea. Right? So for somebody who is having diarrhea, then that medicine which cures diarrhea is best. But this does not mean to say that medicine is best for everybody, which is stupid. Right? So for me, Buddhism may be best, but by that you cannot say Buddhism is best for everybody. Because everybody has a different mental interest, inclination, disposition, So according to one's need, you follow whatever you want to follow. And he gave many examples. One example that he gave is a departmental store, a mall. If you go to a mall, if the only thing that the mall sells is shoes, not many people will come. But if there are so many items in the mall, of course you have so many items, then it attracts many people. Right? So different religions should be like a mall where you can get what you want to have. Or it is like visiting a garden where you have so many different colors of flowers. Right? So therefore we shouldn't be fighting over religion, which is unfortunate. It's really like medicine becoming poison. So that is his second commitment because he's a religious person. Third, he's a Tibetan. So naturally he has to work for the well-being of Tibetan. Naturally the Indians have to work for their country. The others have to work for their country. So you cannot say I care only about the whole world. I don't care about my country. That is hypocrisy. You have to care everybody, including your country. Third, then fourth commitment is revival of ancient Indian tradition. Now this, I am seizing this opportunity to ask my Indian friends, please pay more attention about this revival of ancient Indian tradition. Now when he talks about revival of ancient Indian tradition, he is really not talking about reviving those ancient rituals and ceremonies. He's not so much concerned about that. What he is concerned about is the ancient Indian tradition of using logic for solving any purposes, problems. The ancient Indian tradition of mind, knowledge of mind. Very rich, India is very rich, both in this art of dialogue and logic, and also art of understanding one's emotions and mind, right? So I think, I don't know much, but sometimes I do feel that in the Indian schools and universities, colleges, these things are not taught so vigorously. They may be taught, I don't know everything. But what I'm saying is, at one time India used to be such a good country, they call it Sone ka chiriya, nahi? Like a golden bird, So many great stories were there about India in the, beginning. So it is our task to revive those. His Holiness sometimes jokingly tell people that you have exported your tradition so much that nothing is left here now. We teach yoga and all those things to other countries, But how much we are teaching our younger generation? I'm not saying it's not taught, but not enough. Not enough, because I have that first-hand experience. I almost give at least few talks to young Indians every year. In June we have around 30 students coming to Dharamsala for 1 month from all over India, from different universities. So I at least spend 5-6 days teaching them, talking to them. So from that way, I've been doing this since 2012. So I have some experience. Experience means that when I share all this, they really listen with so much interest. And many of them express that they have never heard such things before. You see? Right? So it's really, really important to teach these values to the younger generation. Reasoning is so important, Otherwise, we just watch a news and then spread the gossip around. Nobody is sure what he is saying, what she is saying, So don't just spread rumor. Find out the correct news, the truth. Use your brain, use your reasoning power, and follow it. Not because somebody said something nice, right? So the point I was making basically was, there is a teaching in Buddhism which says, even if your realization is like that of a god, your behavior should be like ordinary human beings, right? So pretension will not work. First you get grounded, be a nice person, help each other, encourage those people who are doing good things, support them, and make your presence, make the presence of other good people felt. That's the way to change the world, I think, or at least it will make a big impact. But unfortunately nowadays, when somebody, people do many wrong things, hardly anybody is saying anything, right? So the point that I'm making is, we can study all these ideas, we can gain all these knowledges, but we should try to summarize at least something like the talking points. Now we should not say talking points, but points for practicing. Keep those things in our mind and practice it. Then your life will be happier, life of other people will be happier. And if that happens, then you're coming here and sitting here for so many days without going up and down makes sense. Otherwise, why you should just sit here, just go around, go out in the nature, enjoy, take a nice photo, take a nice lunch, that's what you normally do, you just continue with that, you see. But that is not enough. Therefore, we are here to get something, to do something, right? So that is what I wanted to say in the beginning. Okay? Then where are we now? All this. Yeah, we finished reading verse number 15, right? 17. Okay. 17 also finished. Even those who wish to find happiness and overcome misery will wander with no aim, not meaning, if they do not comprehend the secret of the mind. Yes, we read that, the paramount significance of Dharma. Okay. That means secret of the mind means the ultimate nature of the mind, which is shunyata. And so basically he's saying it is because we have not realized emptiness of phenomena in general, especially your own mind, therefore you continue to stay and live with ignorance, and therefore you continue to wander around aimlessly. Therefore it is important to protect your mind. This being, verse number 18, this being so, I shall hold and guard my mind well. Without the discipline of guarding the mind, what use are many other disciplines? Guarding the mind is important because the sufferings that you experience in this life, sufferings that you will experience in the future lives, the fears that you good, and the good things that you do, all comes from the mind. Therefore, I should guard this mind means, therefore I should guard this mind, hold this mind means, now you should know what to adopt, what to discard, maintain mindfulness, okay? I shall hold my mind. Hold my mind means holding the mind with mindfulness so that you know what to adopt and what to give up. And guard my mind well means whatever you are doing, physically, mentally, it should be watched. It should be guarded. For example, if you are walking somewhere, you should not just walk like that without thinking, without aim, without objective. You should see, where am I going now? Am I going to the right place or the wrong place? Similarly, what are you thinking right now? Especially your thinking. This thinking, unless you keep an eye on it, nobody will be able to judge what you are thinking. Physically, if you do something, there may be people who will obstruct you, so you will be compelled to be careful. But with the mind, nobody knows what is going on in your mind. So therefore, there is in one of the mind training teaching, there is a line which says, "Thokta la chawanyi." That means there are two things you need to do in the beginning and in the end. In the beginning, in the end means two things you need to do. Okay, not this one. That actually means beginning you should have good motivation. In the end, there should be reviewing what you have been doing. So there what is important is, there's another line which says, out of the two witnesses, you should pay attention to the one which is the main witness. The two witnesses means when you do something bad or good, there are two witnesses. One is other people. They're also watching you, what you're doing, what you're talking, what you're probably trying also figure out what you're thinking. That also you have to be careful. But that is not the main. The main witness is your conscience. Because you know what you are thinking, what you are planning. Even physically, when you are alone in your room, nobody knows what you are doing. But you know what you are doing. Right? And especially if you are a sincere Buddhist practitioner, then it says there is no place where the Buddha is not witnessing you what you are doing. I think similar thinking is there in the case of those who believe in a God also. God is watching you. Anyway, whether they are watching you or not, but at least you know what you are doing. So you should live your life in such a way so that you don't have to regret and feel shame that I'm practicing duplicity. Right? That's important. So I shall hold and guard my mind well. So all the precepts are actually included in this practice. Without the discipline of guarding the mind, what use are many other disciplines? Now, how would you guard your mind? Two most important practices that will help you guard your mind is you should have this sense of shame. In Tibetan we have very good word, but in English it's not so that effective. Shame is okay, but there's another word which is called Mosa Yoga, the Tre Yoga. Nagarjuna in his very, very beautiful text, Ratanavali. It's a teaching that he gave to the king, how he should look after his, followers and things like that. Beautiful. So there he says, the world is sustained on two grounds. The world is sustained or protected on two grounds. The ground is on the ground of people having shame and people having sense of concern for others. That means if you stop doing something because of your reason, that I'm so and so, I can't do this. I'm so and so, I'm a teacher, I can't do this. I'm a practitioner, I can't do this. I'm a monk, I can't do this. You use your own reason and then restrain from doing negative things. That is called having sense of shame. The second, I don't know in Hindi, anyway, I've heard it out. There must be a word in Hindi. So in English there's no one word which can translate that, so we use it saying that kind of sense of shame in relation to others because of your concern for others. For example, if you're about to do something bad, then you say, I can't do this. If I do this, what my parents will think? This is a disgrace to my parents, disgrace to my teacher, disgrace to my nation. So when you bring other people as the reason not to do something bad, right? When you bring other people into that reasoning for not doing something bad. So it is through cultivating this sense of shame and sense of concern for others, when you stop doing bad things, that's how you properly guard your mind. So guarding the mind, maintaining the discipline of the mind is the most important. Now, if you don't guard your mind and maintain that discipline, then the other disciplines, other conducts, like wearing the robes of a monk, or wearing just changing your external outlook is no use. It's only for show. It's a show business. It is of no use at all to you. So that's what he's saying. Without the discipline of guarding the mind, what use are many other conducts, disciplines? In religious practices, different religious traditions have different practices. Some of the practices are very hard practices. You even torture your body. You jump on a trident and commit suicide. Huh? So many severe practices that is there in many traditions, which are, I think, not healthy, at least from Buddhist viewpoint. So therefore, Buddha decided to follow the middle way, Mother Mark. In the beginning, he was a prince. He had at that time almost everything at his disposal. He had, I don't know, few swimming pools for the summer, for the winter, even in those days. And the pools also having different colored flowers. He's also surrounded by many beautiful looking young women. In those days, kings have that. Then other, facilities, whatever it is there. So he had experienced that luxurious life. And the king, this is important, his father, Suddhodana, the king, because some of the great masters living at that time, they made a prophecy about the Buddha. When he was just a small child, they made a prophecy saying that if you let this young prince study Dharma, he will become completely enlightened, he will leave the household, he will leave the kingdom, he will go away. Okay? But if you let him stay in the kingdom and teach the art of running the administration and so forth, he will become a universal monarch. So obviously the father wanted him to be his heir, universal monarch. So the only way to do it is to ensure that he does not see any ugly sights. So he was not allowed to travel around. He was mostly confined within that kingdom, small kingdom or palace, where you have all the nice foods, nice girls, whatever, all the beautiful things are there. But Buddha, of course, had a different mental outlook, very clever mind. So he was always thinking, what could be there behind this palace, behind this fence? What could be there? Always thinking about it. And then few occasions he requested his father that I want to venture and go out. Even there the father said, okay, you can go out and go through this route. He told the driver of the chariot, go through this route. And that route was very well organized, clean, swept clean, people all looking elegant, beautiful clothes, That's what happens even today when a king or when His Holiness goes around, people show up with the best, So, but somehow he sees this old man, sick man, dying person or dead person, So then he started asking the question, why this person is so old, different from other people? Why this person is suffering? Why this person is sick? What happened? He asked all these questions. Then the charioteer, he answered, this is called aging, this is called sickness, this is called death. We are all prone to that. Then the Buddha thought that if this is our ultimate fate, this is what we are going to experience, how can I remain in this so-called palace completely hypnotized? We can use this word here now. Completely hypnotized by the so-called seeming glories. Therefore, he made it a point that I will find a way to stop aging, stop the causes for suffering, stop death. So from this his life story, what he is saying is, we are more or less like that prince living in the palace. We are also like that. We are hypnotized by the material marvels, the shiny gadgets, the shiny cars, Even if you just talk about mobile phone, there's so many varieties now. iPhone, started from iPhone 1 maybe, I have no idea. Now we have iPhone by 14, right? 14, yeah. 14 what? 14 also, in iPhone 14 also has there are 3-4 categories. I know that, I know that. Which one is the best one?
14 Pro Max.
14 Pro Max. I should get that very soon, huh? Right? So we keep on updating the external gadgets. So I jokingly tell people, we keep on updating the gadgets, but when was the last time when you updated yourself? Like Geshe Lhakdor 1, Geshe Lhakdor 2, Geshe Lhakdor 3, Geshe Lhakdor 14. I should be at least more than 14 now. Right? But unfortunately, in our case, we are more or less the same stupid fellow, making the same mistakes, I mean, I'm not saying you didn't make any improvement. I do hope that you made some improvement, but not so visible. And also we don't pay attention about upgrading oneself, updating oneself. So Buddhism is saying, instead of continuously updating the external things, update yourself. Update yourself. Right? So what use are many other disciplines, other conducts, That's what I'm saying. We are only changing the external outlook and not changing the mind. That is the problem. Changing the external outlook is important because that way you can attract people. And that shows people go after appearances. They have no time to watch for the reality. So when they meet somebody in the monk's robe, they might start thinking, oh, must be very holy, And especially if you meet somebody who has a different hairstyle, different, then you go after it, must be realized. Then you are cheated. Many a times you are cheated. Just like in the shopping mall, the display there is arranged nicely because people go after appearances. I had already spoken about it. So we should, in our life, go more for the substance, the reality, than the outlook, appearances. So now he is saying that since you need to guard yourself, how would you guard it? Why should you be attentive? Verse number 19 is saying, just as I would be attentive and careful of a wound when amidst a bustling, uncontrolled crowd, so I would always guard the wound of my mind when dwelling among harmful people. If you have a wound on your body, then when you move among a very crowded, bustling people, and especially uncontrolled, young people jumping up, down, pushing, pulling, things like that, then you need to be very careful about your wound, If people touch it, you will have a lot of problem, pain. You have to be very careful. Or not just wound, if you are not very well, your feet is not very firm, you can't walk properly, then you may be toppled and killed and, so therefore you have to be very careful. So similarly, I should always guard the wound of my mind. Wound of my mind means your mind is very vulnerable. Very vulnerable. For example, if somebody praises you a little bit, you feel very happy. Our mind is so sensitive, so vulnerable. If somebody says a little bit bad thing, you feel very sad. You are ready to fight. Our mind is very, very sensitive, very vulnerable. So that's what he's saying. So therefore it is important that you make sure that you don't go to those places, at least in the beginning stage. You don't go to those places where there is a likelihood of developing more negative emotions. Don't go with those people, harmful people or sinful people, negative people, in whose company you might end up developing your negative emotions. Right? That's what he's saying. So I should always guard the wound of my mind when dwelling among harmful people. Okay. And if I'm careful of wound through fear of being slightly hurt, then why do I not guard of wound of my mind through fear of being crushed by the mountain of hell? And if I am careful of a wound, why you are careful, why you are protecting your wound? Because there is fear of being hurt, and that hurt will be minor, not too big, slightly hurt. Still there you are careful. If this is the case, then why do I not guard the wound of my mind? Because if you don't guard it, then the result is not a small hurt, but you will be projected into a negative state of existence, including hell. So again, we don't do that because we have no idea what will be like in a hell. The other day we read that hell is state of your mind. So that means when the state of your mind is not good, then you will become crazy, you will become mad. And then in this very life you will say, now I'm experiencing hell today in my family, in my mind. So hell doesn't have to be a separate place where you need to buy a ticket and go there. Right? Hell and happiness is basically a state of your mind. Okay? Should I behave in such a way as this, then whether among harmful people or even in the midst of women, the steady effort to control myself will not decline. So that means if you in this way guard your mind with mindfulness, with conscience, with vigilance and so forth, if you pay that attention and be attentive, and then if you pay that attention and be mindful, okay, then even if you are among harmful people, among your enemies or very harmful people, or you are among women, now this is in the case of a man, or especially in the case of a monk, even if you are among women, then there will be no development of negative emotions like attachment and so forth. Now, if you are a women practitioner, then you can use the other way around. Even in the midst of men, you can say like that. Okay. Now in this text and in some other texts, they talk a lot about women. Sometimes they even highlight how negative women is, the faults of defilements of women, things like that. Then sometimes women start thinking, oh, this is very masculine. Buddhist teachings are against women. Many start thinking like that. So there you need to understand two things. One, there is any religion, has to come up with a particular culture tradition, culture context. So in those days, there may be culturally, there may be a little bit, giving priority to the men and not so much women. That may also be there. That influence may be there. The second, even more important than that is, these teachings were, in those days, it's so interesting, these teachings are given by monks, and mostly to the monks, the male. So therefore you need to talk about the monks should remain celibate, and therefore do not develop attachment to women, things like that. Then in order to do that, you need to highlight the faults of women. Like in this text also, when you read the chapter 8, concentration, then this is written in detail. But then finally it summarizes in one point by saying, there's no use talking so much about faults of women, you also have the similar faults. When you don't realize your own shortcomings and faults, how can you realize the faults and shortcomings of others? So that is said there, okay? So that you should understand. Okay? So should I behave in such a way, meaning that you maintain mindfulness, attention, and being ever and alert and aware, then whichever place you are, harmful place or place of attachment, you will be able to control yourself and your guarding of the mind will not decline, not relax. So wherever you go, be attentive, be mindful. What are you eating? Even small things like eating food, sometimes you really like to please your tongue, and then there's something there looks good, and you don't have much patience, oh, looks good, I should eat it, then get sick. So think twice before you eat things, especially when you're traveling. Many times we get sick because of lack of mindfulness and care. Forget about bigger practices. Even in our daily life, we get so many problems because of just listening to people and not paying attention, right? Okay. So not to have doubt towards everything is wrong. To have doubt with everybody is also wrong. If you doubt everybody, then you will never find one person to whom you can trust. That's also wrong. But if you have no doubt and trust everybody, that is also wrong. Okay? It is better to be without wealth, without honor, without body, without livelihood, and it's better to let other virtues deteriorate rather than ever to let the virtues of the mind decline. That's the most important thing, your most important property. Okay? So that means in all times, in all aspects, with mindfulness and vigilance, if you lead such a life, then you will have no problem. That is what we read already. Right? So in this verse he is saying, it is better to be wealth. It is better to be without wealth. That means even if you don't get, in the case of a monk, even if you don't get a lot of offerings, or even if you don't get a lot of respect, that people prostrating and paying homage to, if that is not there, it is okay. Similarly, even if you don't get those things for your nourishment, for your body, for your livelihood, so in that way, if you die, it's okay. It's not a big deal. That's what he's saying. It's tolerable. And similarly, it is better to let other virtues decline. That means other virtues means the virtuous practice that you do verbally and physically. That's also okay. But if you don't maintain mindfulness and vigilance and protect your mind, then you are in big trouble. So therefore, make steady effort to control, rather than ever to let the virtues of the mind decline. So that means never let your mind decline. Through mindfulness, vigilance, you should always watch and protect the mind. And if you watch and protect the mind, it means you will engage in virtuous practices which will bear positive fruits. Now, having spoken about maintaining mindfulness and vigilance, the next verse is talking about how to do that. First, it gives a summary explanation. O you who wish to guard your minds, I beseech you with folded hands, always exert yourself to guard mindfulness and alertness or vigilance. Now look at this one. Shantideva is so concerned about our well-being. He's with folded hand requesting us, please, please, please do this with folded hands. Oh, iPhone, which one? Huh? He's still saying hello, so what should I do? Okay. O you who wish to guard your minds, I beseech you, I request you, with my folded hands, always exert yourself to guard mindfulness and alertness. That is the summary. He's folding his hands because he's saying this is very, very important. Please, please, please maintain your mindfulness and vigilance. Be vigilant. Now, if you don't do this, what will be the problem? He explains the problem from the next verses. What are the faults of having no vigilance? People who are disturbed by sickness have no strength to do anything useful. Likewise, those whose minds are disturbed by confusion have no strength to do anything wholesome. So that is the point. If you are sick, you have no capacity to do anything. Right? Similarly, when your mind is disturbed by confusion, when there is no vigilance, when there is no concentration, when there is no mindfulness, you cannot do anything. The other day we spoke about the importance of concentration. If you are unable to concentrate, your mind is distracted. If you are not able to maintain mindfulness, mindfulness includes both the one-pointed meditation and analytical meditation, right? Then you can't achieve anything. The other day I mentioned, maintaining one-pointed meditation is like pulling all the energies of mind together. I give you the example of a laser beam, right? So like that. If you look at some of the birds, sitting on the branches of tree, have you noticed those birds? Mostly the birds are like, they don't sit like this. Have you seen the birds sitting like this? Not many. Most of them, they are like, then they fly, sit on another branch, then again. Because they have to be very careful. Another bigger bird or other animal might come and take them away, eat them away. Now in the case of human beings, we heavily rely on our mind and our other facilities, so we think we are not vulnerable. Not knowing the most destructive negative emotion, the enemy is residing peacefully in our mind. You see, not knowing. So therefore you can't relax so long as you have these negative emotions within yourself. Right? People who are disturbed by sickness, then if you are sick, even if you are a young person, but when you are sick, you can't walk, you can't talk, Normally you may be a very intelligent person, but when you are sick, your intelligence also declines. So therefore, you can't do anything. You may be a very intelligent, sharp-minded person, but now because of your sickness, your mindfulness doesn't function, your vigilance doesn't function, and therefore you're distracted. And therefore you don't have the power to study Dharma, to read Dharma. You have no power to do. That's what he's saying. Likewise, those whose minds are disturbed by confusion have no strength to do anything, like thinking, contemplation, meditation, and so forth. And the next verse is saying, Whatever has been learned, contemplated, and meditated upon by those whose minds lack alertness, just like water in a leaking vase, it will not be retained in their memory. That means if vigilance is not there, then your wisdom will be destroyed. Your wisdom will be destroyed. When your vigilance is not there and you are distracted, then such a person with such a distracted mind, which is without vigilance, then the hearings that you have done from your teacher and the capacity to reflect on those teachings and the capacity to concentrate and meditate, all these wisdoms will then decline, right? Just like water in a leaking vase. If you put water in a leaking pot, then the water will not stay there. You put something, but it is leaking at the bottom. So it should not be there. It will not be there. Okay? So therefore, when you study also, I always encourage people, when you study, for example, now we are reading this text. You know we are reading this text. So before reading this text, you should first preview the text. Even before the teaching, you should have read the text. And when you read the text, you may come across many, areas where you are not clear. And then you develop this wish to know the meaning of those verses. You come with that willingness to know. Then you listen to the teacher who explains it. Still things may not be clear. Then ask questions. Then after that, when the session is over, now you should do review, preview, actual teaching, and then review. Normally we don't do this. Therefore, nothing stays in our mind. The purpose and point of any study is that at least something should stay in your mind. A very powerful verse, a very powerful line, or the meaning you should write down. And it is very useful based on my personal experience also. I have this habit of, whenever I come across really powerful verses or wisdoms, I immediately write it down. Because if you don't immediately write down, next time you will start thinking, oh, once I heard about such a word, such a wisdom. Which book was it there? Who said it? Now it will not be possible to figure it out again. So this keeping the essence is very, very important. There must be something that stays in your mind. Okay? Even those who have much learning, faith, and willing perseverance will become defiled by a moral fall due to the mistake of lacking alertness. Meaning that if you don't have the vigilance, then earlier we explained that if you don't have vigilance, your wisdom will decline. So similarly, if you don't have this vigilance, your morality will also decline. That is what he's saying in these words. Even those who have much learning, that means you may be somebody who knows what to adopt, what to discard. And not only that, you may have faith towards the infallibility of law of causality, and willing perseverance, that you may also be making effort towards what to give up and what to adopt. So there are many people who have all these three. They have a lot of knowledge, they have also faith, they also make a lot of effort, but they will become defiled by a moral fall. They experience this moral fall because there is no vigilance due to the mistake of lacking alertness or vigilance. Right? Vigilance. The reason is that if you don't have that vigilance, then the thieves of unalertness, that means when you don't have the vigilance, the thieves of unalertness, in following upon the decline of mindfulness, will steal even the merits I have firmly gathered, so that I shall then proceed to lower realms. That means when you are without vigilance, then the negative emotions like attachment, hatred, they are like thieves. Attachment and hatred will come like thieves. And then there are other negative emotions like arrogance and jealousy, which will, attachment and hatred will come like robbers. Arrogance and jealousy will come like thieves. So as soon as alertness declines, when there is unalertness, then the thieves and the robbers will come. In following upon the decline mindfulness means as soon as your mindfulness declines, then the thieves and robbers will come. And they will steal and rob the merits you have gathered. And what is the result then? The result is, just as when the thieves and robbers rob all of your wealth, nothing will be left. So similarly, you will be left with no virtuous practices, no good qualities, right? And then that will take the life of happy migration and you will fall into negative state of existence. That is what he's saying. This host of thieves who are my own disturbing conceptions will search for a good opportunity. Having found it, they will steal my virtue and destroy the attainment of life in a happy realm. I think that is more or less I've explained already. Because this, as I said the other day, these negative emotions are very opportunistic. They are waiting for the moment. Right? The host of thieves who are my own disturbing conceptions, who are none other than my disturbing conceptions, will search for a good opportunity. And as and when they find that opportunity, they will steal your virtue and destroy the life of happy realm. Because then you end up doing the negative emotions, which will throw you into negative state of existence. Now next, verse 29 is explaining what is the actual method to sustain that mindfulness. What is the actual method to sustain that mindfulness? Therefore I shall never let mindfulness depart from the doorway of my mind. If it goes, I should recall the misery of the lower realms and firmly re-establish it there. Just like, if you are somebody who has quite good wealth, or even otherwise, nowadays everybody when they go out, they lock their room, right? Why do we lock the room? Just leave it open. Why? Not just monkeys. There are other monkeys also. Other types of monkeys also. In Tushita, maybe the main problem is monkeys, not human beings. But if you go to bigger cities, you keep it open for a short time, huh? Yeah. So in bigger cities now, in some places, not only they have lock, but they also have the door in some places. When I visited Moscow some years back, the doors of the individual apartments, they are thick like this, the door. Plus they have spy camera. Every apartment has that camera to see who is coming, who is going, That's the situation. And in some big cities, your next door neighbor dies, nobody knows. It's only after 3-4 days, when bad smell come out or whatever, then they know something bad has happened. So my point is why we do lock our rooms, to make sure that no thieves come, no robbers come. including monkeys or whatever, so that none of the things that you have collected are stolen or robbed or lost. So similarly, it's one thing to collect all these positive qualities, it's another thing to protect it. One way of protecting it is dedicating, as we already discussed. Whenever you perform something positive, then immediately afterwards dedicate it to achieve enlightenment for the sake of all sentient beings. Right? So therefore, mindfulness is very important to guard it. So therefore, because of this reason, therefore he's saying, because of these reasons that we have studied already, therefore, it is because of this reason, I will maintain this mindfulness which does not forget what to adopt and what to discard. I will put it inside the room and probably lock it and not let it go out of that door of the mind and guard it from the harms of the thieves and robbers. From the doorway of my mind. And if it goes, I should recall the misery of, if someone is dying to go out, then you say, okay, if you want to go, go. If you want to go, go and do all the destructive things, and the result will be you will born into one of the negative state of existence. If you want to experience that, go. It's really like saying that. If it goes, I should recall the misery of the lower realms. If you go and do all these negative things, don't maintain mindfulness, you will go into lower realms. Are you prepared to do that? And nobody will be prepared to suffer. So then, family re-establish it there. Now, in the case of the beginners, they will not be able to maintain their mindfulness. So what is the best method to maintain their mindfulness? Therefore, verse number 30 says, through staying in the company of spiritual masters, through the instructions of abbats and through fear, mindfulness will easily be generated in fortunate people who practice with respect. So this verse is basically saying that in the beginning stage, you may not be able to maintain mindfulness. So therefore, it is important to stay with qualified teachers or spiritual friends who possess mindfulness, who possess vigilance. And when you remain in their company, it is easier to maintain mindfulness because your abbats or lamas will also constantly tell you what to adopt, what to discard, and you follow them, you practice it. Because if you violate it, then the lama may scold you, the teacher might scold you. So there is somebody who is taking care of you. So in the beginning, it's important to stay with, other practitioners like lamas or teachers who can guide you, who will tell you just like a naughty child, don't do this, do that. That's important. Another way of thinking is, I am ever dwelling in the presence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are always endowed with unobstructed vision. Another way of maintaining mindfulness is, as I already mentioned, that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, they have unobstructed vision. That means they can see in and out whatever you are doing. There's no place where you can hide, where the omniscient mind of the Buddha cannot see. Right? So therefore, with that thinking also, if you're somebody who wholeheartedly believe in the power of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas, this will be effective. But if you're not so sure, then the best is your conscience. Okay? Because otherwise you will say, oh, how can I even change my clothes if Buddha is seeing? Something like that. Yeah. I'm ever dwelling in the presence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are always endowed with unobstructed vision. By thinking in this way, I shall mindfully develop a sense of shame and respect and fear. Respect means basically showing concern for others. Also, through doing this, recollection of the Buddha will repeatedly occur. Another advantage of thinking like that is the Buddha may be watching you, not watching you. But just by your thinking that Buddha is watching, that will help you. As the other day I said, the God may be there, not may be there. That's not important. The important is when you believe there is a God who is like your father figure, then when you are about to do something bad, then you think, okay, my father is watching. It's not good. So you practice it. So therefore, in this way also it is important. So therefore, by repeatedly thinking like this, you are recollecting, remembering the qualities of the Buddha. From that point of view, it is important. Okay? When mindfulness is set with the purpose of guarding the doorway of the mind, then alertness will come about, and even that which had gone will return. That means at a time when you maintain mindfulness, and guard it at the doorway of the mind. The reason that you guard it at the doorway of the mind is so that it will not engage into objects through which you will develop negative emotions. So in this way, that's the reason why you maintain that mindfulness, to guard the mind. And when you do that, then, in other words, when your mindful practice is good, then you need to develop also vigilance. The purpose of vigilance is to check mindfulness, whether it's really doing its job or not, whether it's getting distracted or focusing on the object. That's the purpose of vigilance. So when you do that, then mindfulness will also come back again. And even that which had gone will return, come back again. Okay? Okay, any questions? Okay.
I have a question which is a little bit disconnected to what we've done today. In the Christian world, the creation of heart is, get it? I thought I was loud enough, but I'm not. Okay, I'm not. I'm sorry about that. The creation of heart of the earth is made by a God. How does what is the explanation of the creation of nature of the universe in the Buddhist concept?
In the very beginning of a very famous text called Abhidharma, which is really like the text on Buddhist cosmology. So in the beginning of that text, it says, the multifarious forms of the world or universes that we experience or see are born out of karma, action. That so-called action is committed by the mind, right? So it is your mind and the action induced by that mind which creates the world, which creates the universe, which creates our experiences. Now this is related to, in the Western philosophy you have this very interesting point, which is there in the Buddhist logic also, design theory. Design theory. The design theory means, if you want to build a house, first you have to come up with a blueprint. That blueprint is prepared based on your thinking, mind. Then you actually do the construction. I think something like that. Something like that. Okay?
I have personal question to that. What is the history of a cosmology? Then, in the Buddhist cosmology, what is the history of a universe? How does it relate to?
Yeah, the story of universe is such that we don't speak about beginning of universe. Universe is beginningless. That is not easy to say because people think that there should be a time frame somewhere where we can pinpoint and say, this is how everything originated. Right? So that's why in other religion we say there is a God who is the source of everything, who for the first time created it. But in Buddhism, that is illogical. Because if everything has to be created by someone like a God, then the question arises, God also needs a creator. Now can you accept that everything needs a creator, God doesn't need a creator? He came up like that. So that's the Buddhist way of thinking. And even some Western philosophers like Bertrand Russell. Bertrand Russell, do you know Bertrand Russell? Very famous philosopher. I'm very fond of reading his books. So he also said people who try to pinpoint the beginning of universe shows the smallness of their mind. Meaning that, for example, if I say, I came from my parents obviously came from their parents. Their parents also obviously came from their parents. So we keep on saying that, and suddenly, okay, they started without parents. It's illogical. So then why this is so? This is law of nature. That everything has to come from their cause and condition. This is law of nature. I mean, it's complex, I'm not saying we have the final answer, but it's interesting, yeah. But Buddha was actually not very interested. When he was asked this question, he didn't answer. He didn't answer not because he had no answer. He didn't answer because if he answers, that will give a jolt to the mind of the person who is asking the question, number one. Number two, he said, my concern is how to remove sufferings of people. I'm not interested in all these metaphysical questions. You know this very interesting story of the parable of the arrow. You know that? The parable of arrow, some of you know that. There was one monk at the time of the Buddha by the name Malukya. So he had received some teachings from the Buddha. So one morning he was in his heart, but suddenly he felt that I received teachings from the Buddha. He has been very kind to me, but there are many areas where he did not answer. And unless I get answer on those topics, I will not feel comfortable. So I must go and ask these questions. So we went straight to the Buddha and asked those questions. When did the universe started and things like that. So if you answer all this, I will continue under your tutorship. If not, maybe I'll find some other teachers. And the Buddha said, first of all, I'm not interested in how many students I have. I'm not looking for students. Then in a kind of answer he said, but you listen to me. If somebody shoots an arrow to you and you are stuck with that arrow and you are bleeding, at that time what would you do? Will you immediately take medicine to heal that, remove the arrow out and take medical treatment? Will you do that? Is that your first priority? Or instead of doing that, you refuse to take the arrow out, you refuse to take medication, and instead ask all the questions related to that shooting of the arrow. Because you have not seen who has shot the arrow. So you ask the question, philosophical question, who must have shot the arrow? How tall the guy may be? Whether he is a moustache or not? How strong the arms of that person? What was the speed of the arrow? What was the bow made of? Sandalwood or some other wood? you know. So even in this small incidents, if you keep on asking all those questions, it will be endless. And long before you get the answer, you will be a dead man. So I'm interested, and therefore the Buddha said, people have so much suffering, sentient beings have so much suffering. I'm concerned about removing their suffering, alleviating their suffering. Therefore I teach on Four Noble Truths, not so much about these metaphysical questions. So there's also a very interesting way of seeing things. Okay? Yeah.
Thank you so much for your teachings, first of all. My question's about understanding the difference between the gross and subtle minds or consciousness. As a beginning or developing practitioner, is it possible to have a direct experience of subtle consciousness or subtle mind?
Yeah, the grosser consciousness means consciousnesses that are related to the senses. Your eye sense consciousness, ear sense consciousness, and so forth. Then subtle consciousness refers to your ordinary mind, the mental consciousness. So out of these two, when you do the practice, try to use the mental consciousness. You know, using your sense consciousnesses and thinking you are doing Dharma practices, I would not say it is useless, but of not much benefit. For example, you use eye consciousness to see the image of the Buddha, you know, that then leaves an imprint on the mind, it's good. But just seeing that has some benefit, but not much. So whenever you try to do your practice, involve that mental consciousness. Try to leave an imprint on the mind. Because what goes to the next life is not your sense consciousnesses, but your mental consciousness. Now within mental consciousness also grosser and subtle, many types. For example, I will not be able to explain, I don't know also much, but there is what we have, the anti-conceptual thoughts. You know, when you experience death and the dissolution of the elements take place, then these anti-conceptual thoughts dissolve into one another. So they are all grosser levels of mind. Then finally, they dissolve into the clear light mind, the subtlemost mind. So now the point is, how can we get a glimpse of it? Normally we say you get a glimpse of it when you sneeze, when you faint, when you have sex. There are few occasions when you get, but in order to get a durable experience of it, you can't keep on fainting. You can't keep on sneezing, you see. So one very good opportunity is to try to seize that consciousness, subtle consciousness at the time when you are dying. So if you're a practitioner, then you know when the dissolution and death takes place, then you know, okay, I'm now dying. Now my earth is dissolved into water. And now my water element is dissolving into fire. Now my fire element is dissolving into wind or air. And now it is dissolving into consciousness. So you know that. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama is always saying that, I practice, I die many times in a day. And I'm now, waiting with curiosity how much I will be able to handle that when I actually experience the dissolution and the death, you see. So meaning that unless you do this practice regularly, it will not be easy to do that. There's one way. The another way is what is being taught in the Dzogchen tradition or Kajiba tradition also, and in the Gelugpa tradition also. So there you say, you say sometimes, our mind is normally, the very definition of the mind is something that is luminous and cognitive. Unlike a mirror, unlike a glass. Glass or mirror is, luminous. It can reflect whatever comes within its purview, but it doesn't have that cognitivity. Perceiving that object, that capacity is not there. But the mind is luminous and cognitive, so naturally it has an object. Not only it has an object, but what normally happens is our mind is always chasing some object of happening in the past, happening right now, or happening in the future, where our mind is always chasing the object, right? Now in those, teachings of the Dzogchen and so forth, they say, don't let your mind, think about what has happened in the past. Don't let your mind go into the future plannings and so forth. And make sure that your mind is not running towards any object. Just try to focus on that mere luminosity and clarity. So that is a practice we can do, so to get the glimpse of it. And then with repeated practice, you might be able to prolong it. And if you are able to prolong it and stay in that state of luminosity and cognitivity without chasing the object, there is no possibility for you to develop any negative emotions. There's one quick way of doing the practice also, right? But again, then, and unless you are a good practitioner and able to continuously stay just on that, then when you come back again, negative emotions will come, right? So all this are not that easy, right? Okay, yeah.
Thank you very much. Really deep teachings. And you just mentioned that the mind should not go into the past and stay in the present. And I get a lot of people talking about past trauma, a lot of things being said about childhood trauma. And that comes up in the present. What's your view on how to deal with that?
No, that is I don't know, like many people do this past life regression and also therapy, I have some friends, in Miami who do this, therapy. So they intentionally try to let the patient remember, the past life experiences. So that they say by doing that it is very healing. They say things like that. I don't know much about it. But what I'm saying is, when you do such a meditation and don't let anything come in your mind. When you the interesting thing is, as I said the other day, the interesting thing is when you try not to think anything, actually you think more. When you make an effort that I will have no object within my mind, all objects will come. So that's why the other day I said, before I meditated, I was a nice person. After I meditated, I become a bad person, But anyway, you have to say no. Like any other meditation, when you meditate, you have to have an object. And you are making a commitment saying that I will focus only on this object, nothing else will come. But then this only object that on which you want to meditate, it's not coming. Others you don't want to meditate, they're all coming. So that made the sixth Dalai Lama, who sometimes is called a womanizer or whatever. He's a very interesting, revolting, life. So he wrote some poems, beautiful poems. It looks like ordinary poem, romantic poem, but very high tantric teaching. So there in one of his words he said, the face of my teacher which I meditate never comes in my mind, but the face of my beloved girl which I don't meditate always come in my mind. You see, so this is due to your past life's habit, where is your liking and disliking, things like that. But anyway, the point is we need to try to remove all this by not running after any object, be it past life's experience, whatever. Just try to make your mind stay on that luminosity, not chasing the object, I think. I'm not an expert, okay? Yeah.
I was thinking about something. So-called good people, when practice detachment, they're not interested in making money. And that caused them not to have power and voice. So there are lots of good people that they're struggling with finances.
True.
So what's the solution?
I'm in that category. Are you going to give me a lot of money? I'll change my mind. Not joking. Yeah.
And bad people, they have power.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
So how can you be detached, but
Two things. One, there are really sincere practitioners who know that if you have money, despite of you not wanting to do bad things, you will end up doing bad things because now you have money that makes you capable of doing so many things. Money makes maya go, as we say, right? So they are very careful not to have money. Because one of my neighbors, who really does a lot of work, helping sick and dead people, especially dying people, is very elderly now. He's nearly 80 or something. But he also does this divination. Everybody comes to him asking questions, but he never takes money. And one day, one of my Western friends came and he wanted to do divination. He was looking for somebody. I said, go to him. So I went with him to help him translate. He was giving some money. He didn't take. And he said, it is this thing called money which is destroying people. So he was very strong. So there are people who think like that. That's one level, so ordinary level. Then in the case of the highly enlightened bodhisattvas, who have no attachment, even if they have boxes and boxes of gold, silver, jubilee, whatever, they will not say, I don't need this. They will say, okay, keep it here. But they will have no attachment also. That's what we need. They have no attachment also because they think, forget about this money and wealth. I don't own myself. I'm not my owner in a sense. I belong to people. I'm for sentient beings. You've dedicated your everything, including yourself, for serving other people. So these are all for other people. And it is said that for such a bodhisattva, if he uses it thinking this belongs to me, that's an infraction. So for such people, it's wonderful to have wealth. So there are two things. One, when you are trying to achieve liberation just for yourself, when you become a monk, that's called patimoksha, or individual liberation. So there, it is repeatedly said you should have contentment, you should not have wealth, all these things. But when you talk about becoming Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings, you become Bodhisattva, you need so many facilities. It's by that way you can help many people, you see. Right? So there in this context, even on a very basic level, in India, we have this very famous teaching, which is of course available in Buddhism also. 4 excellencies. 4 excellencies are Dharma, religion, and wealth, and then happiness, and then nirvana. So you need both. For this life, you need wealth, because from wealth and money you get happiness. But that is not enough. There is another life, afterlife also. So for that, you need Dharma to achieve liberation. So all these 4 are called 4 excellences, which is really necessary. So the main point is, it is not really a trouble that you have money. The problem is how you use it, how you misuse it or use it. So therefore it is good if you don't get obsessed with money just for yourself, then it's good to have money, to be powerful, to be able to help, launch many projects. It's very useful. Because I run an institute, Library of Tibetan Works and Archives. There are some people who support us. So of course, I don't go around begging. I'm not good in fundraising. In order to do fundraise, you need to, write a beautiful proposal, which I'm not good, things like that. Anyway, the point that I'm making is, even in terms of, as you rightly mentioned, even in terms of doing good things, you need money. Right? So that depends upon your, trying to get this money for, the well-being of many or just for yourself. There's the boundary. Just for yourself, you don't need much. But for many others, you need a lot. Right? So that's why Avalokiteshvara also, if you see this Avalokiteshvara with 1,000 arms, yeah, so you need a lot of things to help other people, yes. But then the problem is balancing. Ordinarily speaking, the problem is balancing. Even Mao Zedong, he had a good intention, I think, in the beginning. He was an ordinary peasant. And he saw the poverty of these farmers. So he wanted to bring about a big revolution, change, Communism is also originated like that. Struggling for the struggle is for classless struggle. Let us do away with the bourgeois and let us empower the proletariat. But then when it came to actual implementation, you focused just upon yourself. You started valuing in wealth, and you did the same thing. You managed to destroy the rich, but you did not manage to empower the poor, you see. So if you visit some of these old communist countries, you can't believe they're talking about the well-being of the poor people. The mansion, palace that you live in those days. I visited some of them, full of luxury. See? Yeah. So it depends upon who you are, how you are going to use it. Okay. Any other questions?
The mind that is referred to as luminous and aware, is that what is referred to as the subtle mind?
Yeah.
And is that related to the clear light mind?
Yeah, luminous and cognitive nature of the mind is the nature of all mind, not just the clear light. Clear light is the subtlest mind, which is of course mind, therefore it is luminous and cognitive, but it's very, very subtle. We normally don't experience it. So therefore one of the goal of tantric practice is, there is a phrase which says, making the mother and son clear light meet. Making the mother and son, or making the mother and child clear light meet. So that means you should be able to gradually, use that very powerful, penetrative, subtle mind, clear light, and let it focus on emptiness. That's the meeting. So that is said to be really, really powerful to change everything, right? Okay? Yes, sir.
Where does the mere eye situate between the gross mind and the subtle mind?
No, it's not between gross and subtle.
Okay.
It's not in the pineal gland. Many people think that the eye is there in the pineal gland, right? In science, they think it is somewhere there. Anyway, eye is just a designation. Just like, for example, if you ask me, where really is this microphone? Is it on the top, or the bottom, or the handle? Where is it?
Okay.
Just a designation.
Okay.
This is mesmerizing, really. Mind blasting. That's why understanding emptiness is not easy. It's frightening in a way. Therefore, we say that if you really want to understand emptiness, you also need to collect merit. You have to have enough storage of merit to understand that. Right? For example, it's like the banana tree. You thought there is some essence in it, then you started peeling. After having peeled everything, did you find anything that you can say this is the essence, this is the core? Nothing. Just like onion, you see. So like that, if you really, whether the eye is the body or the mind or the parts of the body, their way you hope to get so-called eye which you can, lay your hand and point say, yes, I found it. The scientists are doing that. You see, they wanted to find that subtlest particle. They call it fundamental building block. Because they found many subtle with the improved instrument. They were able to find many particles, atoms, electrons, neutrons, leptons, so many things they're able to find. So they really want to say that, yes, I found the fundamental building block, this is it. There is nothing which is more subtler than this. So they really worked very hard, improved their technology and so forth. Now where are they today? I don't know, I'm not very updated with science, but my latest information is, when they thought that they found the most subtle particle, it changes into wave. When they thought it is a wave, somehow kind of particle pops up. So they are right now kind of confused with this wave-particle duality. They call it a wave-particle duality, you see. In Buddhism, 1,000 years before, they said, you will never find a partless particle. They have no instrument, nothing. But in Madhyamika, it is really clearly announced, you will never find a partless particle. So let us see. Okay, lunchtime. Whatever else may go, we should not let the lunch go. It's part of Bodhisattva practice. Huh? Yes. Chapter 11, yes. It's a good idea. Very sharp. Chapter 11.